Hello, and welcome to the Work, Wealth, and Travel podcast. I'm your host, Nicole, aka Nomad Neeks, and this podcast is the place to be if you are looking to start creating a lifestyle that you love. From business, entrepreneurship, travel, starting and sustaining a digital nomad lifestyle, and of course, making money online and investing, we talk about all of it here. So let's dive into it. This is our Digital Nomad Digest segment with myself and Cami out every single Friday. So, in today's episode, we are going to chat about some, I would call it traditional advice that does not resonate with us at all as digital nomads, as entrepreneurs. We were just chatting about this off air and thought that we would record about this because online on social media, you kind of see the routine and the workday that seems to work for a lot of people, but both of us kind of reject that. And we figured out what works for each of us individually. So, Cami, why don't you dive into what we were just chatting about, what that kind of idealized routine and workday and morning looks like, and why it doesn't work for you?
I love that this is something that we both resonate with because it is a topic that in my career and in my lifestyle it has brought up a lot of different things, a lot of shame actually as well. I don't know about you, but for me it's something that, I've always seen in social media, as you said, that we have to have this specific routine if you are a remote worker, self-employed or an entrepreneur. You have to grind your face off. You have to wake up at like 5 a.m., get the majority of your important work done in the morning, and get that workout in the morning as well, and then you can sleep earlier and blah blah blah. And I'm sure that this life and this lifestyle works really well for a lot of people, and I would love to have this lifestyle, but every time that I try, it feels like it doesn't sit well with me. And so I had to go through a lot of processes to kind of allow myself to create my unique way of working and just allowing my body and my energy levels to ebb and flow throughout the day and throughout the week, and analyzing in this connection with my body what is the routine that makes sense for me and building it up from the inside instead of building it up from the external and what everyone else, like cookie cutter mold, of the entrepreneurial routine, are telling me that I have to do. So as I was telling you, I have this friend of mine that she like is someone that naturally wakes up at 5 a.m. and that's great for her. Naturally, I wake up at 11 a.m. and I know that you are also like this, like if I don't put an alarm, I can sleep for hours. I just need a lot of sleep. And I used to feel really ashamed about that because my parents, they're not that much like that. So I always, needed 9 to 10 hours of sleep. I naturally feel more tired, I don't have that much energy. I've looked into my blood levels and everything. I just need more sleep, like if I don't sleep that well, I don't feel good the next day. I know a lot of people who thrive off of like 5 or 7 hours of sleep. I don't. So I know that this is me. I've tried the 5 hour, 7 hour. It doesn't work. How Anyways, this friend of mine, I'm digressing, but yeah, this friend of mine, she naturally wakes up at 5, and she was telling me like, yeah, if I could give you a piece of advice, I would really tell you to just try to do all of your big work stuff in the morning. I was like, thank you so much for your advice. Like, I'm really happy that this works for you. However, for me, it's really not like that because in the morning, it's when I have the least amount of energy. Like, I'll have more focus and energy at night. I can record podcast at night, at 7 p.m., 8 p.m., and I'll be like really, really on fire and really focused. But then if you put me to record a podcast in the morning, I'm so slow and my brain just doesn't work really well. So I know that in the morning I have to do something a little bit more kind of automatic, something that I don't have to focus a lot on, something that's more kind of operational. I don't know the word. And yeah, just taking my time for my energy peak, which is normally in the afternoon. So I think it's really important to have this conversation because I know that especially people who are beginning they're starting their entrepreneurial journey or their remote working journey or whatever the name is, they get exposed to this type of content on social media, and then they feel like they have to put themselves in this mode, otherwise they won't be successful. So I think it's a conversation that is really important to have, because it ultimately boils down to you knowing yourself and your energy levels and what works best for you, instead of just trying to fit into a mold, which I think it's something that we constantly talk about, but now we're approaching the topic of routine. I don't know how you feel about that, if you also had to overcome this shame of the tiredness.
I didn't have to overcome a shame of it, but I feel like I more so was just like, I don't understand what people are on about this quote unquote, like great, especially when it comes to the morning routine, like the 5 a.m. club and waking up at 5 a.m. before the whole world is awake and you can get things done. And for me, it really came down to being good at prioritizing and having great time management skills. And of course, everyone can struggle with that. There's a million things we need to do in so many hours in the day. But for me, I didn't really understand, and I still don't, as much. Doesn't matter how much I have going on. I know the priorities. I know what needs to be done first. What can we put to the back burner? And I don't feel the need to have to wake up at 4 or 5 a.m. Would it be great to get some extra work done at that time and then, be able to have maybe a little bit more free time in the day? Yes, of course. But I also really prioritize my sleep, as you mentioned. And I know myself, I know my body, I know that I need, 8 to 10 hours per sleep, I would say, on average per night. Otherwise, I just will not feel well and I won't be productive in the work I do. So for me, I would rather wake up later, get the sleep that I know I need so that I can be productive and manage my time, manage where my time is going to which priorities throughout the day. A really good example of this is probably like 2 weeks ago. I had a meeting and it's a standing meeting I have with a client every single week. It's at 9 a.m. in my current time zone. And usually I wake up for this meeting and then after the meeting, I'm energized and I get started on work or I'll go out or whatever that looks like. And after this one meeting on this specific day, I was just so dead. I was so tired. I knew that I just needed to go back to bed. I went back to bed and I slept until like 12:30 in the afternoon or something like that. And it was because I knew that I didn't get enough sleep. Waking up at 9 a.m. was too early for me that specific day. And I knew that I wouldn't be productive because after the meeting, I was sitting at my computer and I was just like, I'm just going to stare at the screen for the next 2 hours. I may as well go nap. And yes, it'll take 2 hours, but I would rather that because then when I come back to the computer, I'll be refreshed, I'll be recharged, and I'll actually be able to be productive instead of waking up early because you're quote unquote told that you're supposed to. That's what you're supposed to do, but being completely unproductive because my brain is not in the headspace and all day my brain will just want to nap. So for me, I didn't really have a shame around it, quite honestly, because I know how my body works. But I did have to figure out at the beginning of my nomad journey what worked best for me. And I knew pretty early on, because I've always loved sleep my entire life, that waking up early was not going to be a priority. It was not going to be something that would really further me. It would probably hinder me more than anything.
One thing that I keep thinking about right now is that it's so important for us to develop a routine that is sustainable. I really, really, really like this word, sustainability, because I think that that could expand to so many areas in your life. So you're sustainable with the way that you eat, instead of being in an extremely restrictive way of eating, in your healthy way of eating. You eat healthily, but you also eat in a sustainable way. And then you work in a sustainable, you're not doing this big sprints, and then the several months afterwards you're just burnt out and you can't do anything, and you need to take several months of rest because you're just exhausted from the sprint. The routine is the same thing. That's how I like to see it. If I really wanted to, like, I'm a human being, we're adaptable, I could totally do the 5 a.m. wake up call, go to sleep at 10, try to put all of my big work stuff for the morning and things like that. And maybe I could do that for a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months. But I've tried to do something not that extreme, like the 5 a.m. I just know myself. I'll get up if I need to catch a plane, if I need to catch a train or something like that. But if I can avoid it, I'll not put an alarm for 5 a.m. But if I really wanted to, I could force myself to go into that routine. But then, first, what's the point? Like you said, like, what am I gaining from this? And second, is this something that is sustainable for me? And is this bringing me happiness? Because ultimately, the reason why we're creating this life is that we can create our own versions of everything, the way that we're gonna set up our finances, the way that we're gonna make money, the way that we're gonna be healthy, the way that we're gonna set our days around our work schedules and our routines. That is really an interesting thing to consider as well. Is your routine, the one that you're building, the one that you have right now, is it sustainable? Is it really an extension of you? Or is it something that you're doing out of societal pressure or external validation?
And you talking about sustainable, which absolutely love that word as well. I think it's so important. You mentioned sustainable way of living and also sustainable way of eating. Like there's a sustainable way to do everything that is sustainable for you and you individually. It may not work for anybody else, but that doesn't matter. So an example that I thought of when you were speaking is for me, I personally, and I know you have a different view of this, which I love, but I think most of the time cooking is just a waste of time for me. It's not something I enjoy, which is a big part of it. But going to get the groceries and then unpacking the groceries at home and cooking and doing the dishes and consuming the food, like it's such a time consuming process. So for me, that's not sustainable. I have altered my life. And yes, I do go get groceries and cook sometimes because I don't like to eat out all the time, but you can get groceries ordered for you to your door. You can order salads online. Like there's so many different things that you can do that is sustainable for you and may not work for somebody else. Eating is just one example. The morning routine is another one or lack of a morning routine. I don't have a morning routine. All my morning routine consists of getting enough sleep so that I can be productive that day. So I think it really does just depend what you want your ideal nomad life to look like. And that's going to look completely different for everybody.
And on the flip side, I will also say that one thing I have seen with my own self is that I think it's really important for you to have this understanding of your body and on your of yourself, because I think that trying out different type of routines can also be really beneficial for you to understand what are the things that you want to keep in your routine in your life, and what are the things that really don't make sense for you. So if I see someone posting about like the 5 a.m. wake up, like Wim Hof stuff, like the guy who takes cold showers, he does the breath work, he does the meditation, and all of this thing like before, I don't know, it's 5, 6 a.m. So I tried this once and then I see that the cold shower was like, meh, doesn't really affect me. However, the breath work really helped me to stay more focused throughout the day. And the meditation I really loved, but the waking up at 5 and taking the cold shower didn't really move the needle for me. So those are things that eventually I can allow to come and go from my routine in the morning or throughout the day, because I know that those are things that support me, support my focus, support my levels of productivity, support my being in general, my body. So I think that I really love also kind of testing things and flowing in and out of things as I feel like they are supportive for me. Because I also think that, and I say that a lot, especially when you are working for and by yourself, I think that it's really easy to fall in this kind of sometimes self sabotage mechanisms of like not getting out of bed and like not getting out of your pajamas, not eating really well. And because, you're just at home so much, you're alone. And of course, I have days like this, but I also am really hyper aware of myself and my body to know that when that is not serving me and when that is coming from a place of just, yes, like ickiness, like self sabotage, kind of like laziness or things like that. I also really wanted to put this out there in this episode because I don't want this to sound like a message of, have no routine or no consistency or like don't try anything new. I think it's ultimately about trying a lot of different things and allowing yourself to build and mix and match whatever makes sense for you. And I'll say, like, for me, some days and or some weeks, even like if I'm in the week of my period, for example, I really like to stay in bed sometimes and work from the bed. But then the next day I'll wake up and I'll be like, ugh, I don't want to be close to my bed. And then I really need to go to a cafe. I get ready, and I go to a cafe. And then the next day I start noticing that when I wake up and I instantly look at my phone, I don't get happy. So then I switch the phone thing to a quick meditation or something like that. And I just don't. One thing that I really like about the way that I approach this personally is that I don't approach it as an all or nothing. So I woke up today, for example, and I meditated. But if tomorrow I don't wake up and I meditate, I won't beat myself up for it. I'll just allow my day to unfold, but I will also observe what did the meditation bring me versus what did the looking at my phone instantly brought me as well. And I think that is really important for you to make this like micro decisions throughout your day to make sure that you're creating something that is supporting you and that's also sustainable.
Again, the sustainable word. And I do think it's important what you mentioned that not having a routine or the lack of a routine doesn't mean that you don't have to be or are not structured or are not motivated. I would say my routine is having like a very loose routine and some days no routine. And that's okay because I know, again, kind of what I mentioned, like I know what needs to get done. I know what moves the needle. And so for me, that works. And that's kind of my structure of a routine. Whereas some people need a very heavy structure, that 5 a.m. wake up, do work, workout, whatever it may be, and then 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. And I have some clients who are like that too, who are very structured and want to plan out every hour because they know that they won't get things done unless they have that structure. And for me, it's really interesting to see that firsthand when I'm on calls with clients because for me, that's not how I operate at all, but it's really interesting for me to see the way that other people need to structure their day if they want to be productive. Whereas for me, that would be the opposite of productive because, and I've tried that before in my CRM tool. In my project management tool, I have built out every hour of every single weekday and what I'm supposed to be doing. And, listen to a podcast, go for a walk, do work, call a friend, like having the balance between work and enjoyment. And that did not work for me. I was just like, what am I doing? So I had to create a system that works for me. And for me, I have my calendar for that day. I have any calls or meetings or whatever that may look like. And then any other tasks that I want to get done, I put them in my calendar for that day and I simply just work through them. For some people, it looks like writing it on a notepad, it looks different, or putting it in your project management tool so that your team can see whatever it looks like. But for me, I figured out what works. But I think you're totally right. Not having a solid routine doesn't mean that you are lacking routine. It just means that you know what's working best for you and you have figured that out, which I think is amazing.
I work in a very similar way as you were describing. I have like all of my tasks, quote unquote, and like meetings and things like everything I have that I have to remind myself of is on my Google Calendar. And I put like a recurring, for example, I have a recurring event that's called movement that is for 1 hour that it's like like an invitation for me to work out, but I can do whatever I want. It can be like I don't have like 1 hour of gym session a leg day, it's like it's 1 hour of movement, choose whatever you want to do. Sometimes I delete it because I'm really tired. For example, today I'm exhausted, I'm not gonna work out. Like yesterday I moved and I walked a lot, so today I'm just really tired. I didn't sleep really well. I'm not going to force myself to do it. I'm going to have a really chill day. And then yesterday, for example, some things came up during the afternoon. I had several tasks that I had to do yesterday, but they weren't pressing. So I just shifted them throughout the week. So I know the things that I have like them in different colors as well. So I know the things that are like quote unquote urgent. So I can't move them. And I know the things that I can kind of ebb and flow with them throughout the week. So I also like to look at my schedule and kind of like my I don't know, my to-dos and my tasks and my routine in more of sometimes like a weekly basis rather than a daily basis. So if I have a full day of work, then the next day it's okay if it's more of an enjoyment rest type of day instead of being in the same day, having like 50% of work, 50% of rest. Because sometimes you wake up and you just feel like you want to rest and do the essential stuff, and then the other day you're feeling super focused in the zone and in flow, and you want to do so much and you end up working through a lot. And then if I had scheduled in like a rest day, or if I had scheduled in I don't know, whatever else, then I wouldn't allow myself to kind of ebb and flow with my energy levels as well. Sometimes, even in weekends, like I really try to take weekends off, and normally I'm really good at it. But sometimes in the weekend, I get this inspiration and I want to work. So I allow myself to work. And then sometimes I kind of force myself, quote unquote, to take a Monday off, because it's not only about the day. I think a lot of people, they get really caught up in the day thing. So yeah, I don't know. I also like to think of things in this way of let's flow with the energy, like with my energy levels. Let's see what I also want to do in that day, in what mindset I'm feeling like I'm in. If I'm feeling in a more creative mindset, or if I'm feeling a more like operational mindset, and then kind of go over the tasks of the week and or the day, and kind of seeing where I can start off from there. So I think that's a self-awareness that it's really important to have as well.
Yes, I absolutely love that you bring up the day of the week, and that is so important for me, and I completely agree. I think so many people get so caught up, and I know I'm a victim of this sometimes as well. I'm not perfect, but so many people get so caught up on what day of the week it is and what you need to be doing, and I totally understand that. Of course, if you are a 9 to 5er and you work on somebody else's time for somebody else, that makes sense. But for myself, it doesn't make sense. And what I always say, and I know some people will agree with this and other people won't, which is fine. Again, it's figure out what works best for you. But for me, what I always say and what I will always stand by is that for me personally, every single day is a weekend and every single day is a work day. Yeah, usually my calls will be from, or not usually, always my call will be from Monday to Friday. So I know I have a little bit more structure and more face time that I need to put in those days of the weeks. But I have no problem working on a weekend. I have no problem working till midnight if need be on a weekend, or working until midnight if need be on a weekday. For me, it doesn't matter. Of course, I have plans within my personal life, I have calls within the business, but if it doesn't interfere with those things, then I don't have a problem if something needs to get done to hop online and do it at 11 p.m. or 8 a.m. if I'm awake, you know? So for me, that is how I operate my business. Of course, I have boundaries with my clients, which is a whole nother topic that we could probably talk about for another hour. But for me, going into first being a freelancer and then having my business and having people behind me that I manage, I knew that if I wanted to grow and scale my business to be something big, it needed to be more of a priority to me than a 9 to 5 where at 5 p.m. I log off and that's it until 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. or whatever it may be the next day. And that also for me is very intuitive, which I know you're going to just love that I use that word, Cami, because for me, I don't want to wake up at 8 a.m. That's one of the biggest reasons why I hated working for somebody else in an office, a corporate job, because I didn't want to wake up early. That didn't align with me. And now I can structure my business around my lifestyle. And yeah, sometimes I'm working until even I think 3 a.m. is the latest that I was working when we were in Eastern Europe last summer. That was fine. I am creative. I want to get things done at that time. But working at 8 or 9 a.m., not for me. Having something on my own, really figuring out what works best for me as well and when I want to get things done and when I'm the most creative to do those things in the best and best way possible, I guess, for myself and for my client.
Yes, I really, really, really love this. I really resonate with it as well. I think that, and you probably also don't have any problems with like resting on a Monday, right?
No, not at all. I mean, sometimes I will say, like I mentioned, sometimes it is a little bit difficult because I'm like, it's a Monday, I should be doing things. And I think that's a mental
Mm-hmm.
barrier that we all have. But yeah, if I need to rest on a Monday, like it was a Monday when I slept until 12:30 and I had a nap after my call the other week. And I was like, I need this, Maybe I'll work all Saturday if I need to. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, exactly. The only thing that, however, and I'm curious if you feel that, is because your partner kind of shares the same lifestyle than you. He's also an entrepreneur. But so I think that might be easier to kind of patch together, let's say. But one thing that I felt, especially when I started working as like in not even for myself, but as like in the remote world or things like that, and then after for myself and as a freelancer and entrepreneur, I felt like I didn't have a lot of people who had the same flexibility of schedule as me. So I felt like I kind of ended up also adapting back to the Monday to Friday kind of type of lifestyle, quote unquote. Because otherwise, then I wouldn't be able to hang out with, my friends or my partner or something like that or my family. So, yeah, it is something that I also felt like in the beginning stages. I remember like back in 2020 when I was setting up my yoga classes online and things like that, I would work all day, every day. Like I would spend in my computer, even during weekends and everything. Because also a lot of people around me, they kind of had the same. So, if you wanted to take out the entire Tuesday to go, I don't know, to another city and explore, it would be fine. But after I left Bali, I think a lot of the people that were surrounding me, they were more, yeah, working more like either 9 to 5 or yeah. So it was a little bit a bit more challenging to be this way, if I wanted to skip a Friday and then work on a Saturday, then I would be missing out on all of the fun that other people would also be having. I would say that that's not something that happens a lot because I still have a lot of people around me that kind of have a flexible schedule. But I remember having this thought at some point in the past years in which I thought to myself, I kind of would like to have a little bit more of a flow in which I have more set work days so I can also enjoy the other days with other people. Like I know normally that Monday is a really weird day for me and I try not to set recordings or something like that because I feel like my brain is kind of adapting from the Sunday, which for me is like a dead day. So like on Monday, I'm kind of like, what the fuck is going on? Like reconnecting to myself. And then I can start and everything. And then normally Friday after like Fridays are also days that I'm like don't want to be like showing up, recording stuff, blah blah blah. So I also work with my energy a lot. But yeah, just the weekend thing, I still kind of like look at them as the weekend because of the people around me. I don't know if that's your a little bit. Yeah, maybe for you it's more different because of your partner and the way that you guys travel together.
I love that you bring that up, and I think that's important. I find it's less about my partner, which definitely is a part of it because we can choose to work or sometimes not on the same schedule, but what I really found was when I started working with clients full time, I was on their schedule. And of course, it's still my business and I'm working for them, but I'm not going to be replying to a client on a Saturday or a Sunday. So if I had any correspondence or meetings or anything like that, it would be happening in the weekday. And yes, I can do the work on a weekend, which is fine. But if there's questions or anything that arises that I need to reach out to them about, then that's something that will have to wait until a Monday. So that is one thing that I did find when going full time working with clients. I realized that I was on their time, and it is much easier to be available during the weekdays than it is on the weekends. And even now, I find my Saturdays and Sundays, even though I might have work that I need to get done, it's a lot quieter and I could be a lot more productive and get many more things done. Whereas in the weekday, I'm getting the emails and the messages and the calls and the meetings and the podcasts and all of the things. So it can be a little bit more difficult to slot things in.
Yeah, I think that it ultimately boils down to kind of you leaning into your new venture, being it a business that you're opening or working as a freelance, getting your clients and kind of structuring it in a way that works for both you and your clients. For me, with my clients, I have something that I have to do daily, but a lot of them are weekly. So I can organize my week around those things. So I don't have to have everything in a set day or something like that. It's just the way that I have organized things with them. And for me, it works really well because I can allow myself to ebb and flow with my energy levels, and I don't have to force myself to always have the Tuesday to work this amount of hours on this specific tasks. Because sometimes I'll wake up and I'll want to do something else. And then I have the freedom to allow myself to do that. So, and one thing that I was like mentioning about the Mondays, for example, Mondays, sometimes when we are on social media, we see those inspirational quotes like, this, it's today's Monday, get the shit done, blah, blah, blah. Let's like tackle everything. And on Monday, I'm like, I'm not going to tackle anything. I'm going to be like doing the basic stuff that I can. And sometimes I do have more energy, but sometimes I'm just kind of phasing in the day. But I have heard this thing about Monday essentials or something like that. It's like this little kind of like TikTok trend, I think, of I think it's called Bare Minimum Monday. Bare Minimum Monday, something like that, where it's this new wave of people that are inspiring other people to use the Mondays just to tackle the bare minimum so you can ease into your week. And I feel like that's very much what I do. So I love that more people kind of are talking about that because we normally hear the other part of the grind your face off Monday, and that's not ever how my Monday looks like, or ever in my life have looked like. Like even when I did work in corporate jobs, just can't with with it like this.
I've never heard that, but I do like that. And it really, I think that just comes down to really figuring out like, and I'm sure, if you want to be productive on a Monday and you're feeling inspired, then that's great. But it kind of leaves you the ability to feel okay if you don't want to rush into the work week and get a million things done on a Monday so that you don't feel that guilt, maybe is a big part of that as well. I think this has been a really interesting episode. Interesting topic. We always choose a topic, and I feel like we think we are going to have nothing to say about it, but we really go off of each other. If you are listening and you have any questions or comments about anything that we spoke about here, feel free to message us. All of our links are down below. If you want to message us on social, see the content that we're posting, or anything else, everything is linked down below. And if you are listening on Apple or on Spotify, please consider scrolling down if you're on Apple and leaving a review. We really, really appreciate that. And it helps this podcast and it helps its discoverability as well. So that would be amazing if you would be able to leave us a 5-star review. We will be back with the Digital Nomad Digest segment of the Work, Wealth, and Travel podcast next Friday. Be sure to subscribe if you have not already, and we will see you in next week's episode.